Hi, this is Fat Mike, and I'm about to read and talk about the 30, what I think are the 30 best, 30 most important records that Fat Records has ever put out. Uh, I'm not putting them in order because that'll make bands feel bad, and there's going to be bands that feel bad already because they're not included. But AP said I only get 30, so here's a list of the 30 best records, the 30 most important records on Fat Records. In no order. But I'm going to start with Bad Cop, Bad Cop, because right now I kind of think that's the most important record that Fat Records has put out. Some people might think that's a strange choice, but for years, in the early 90s, Fat Records used to get shit for not putting out enough female-fronted bands or girl bands. And we had Tilt, which is that was an important band, but it was just one. We had one girl and one band for years, and I looked for girl bands, but I just didn't find any that I thought were really that good. There was a lot of riot girl bands at the time, but that's not really the Fat sound of melodic punk. So I know Stacey D for a long time, and when I signed Bad Cop, they put out a record that was pretty good, and then I really got behind them and produced a second record, and they were just like, they wanted to be queens of feminism, kings of feminism. They were just like singing really important songs, and I love every song on the record. I think it's probably the best girl band album, in rock and roll since the Go-Go's. I don't think anyone can touch it, especially in punk rock. I don't think any all-girl band touches it. So there's my that's my first pick. I'm just gonna put D4. I'm not gonna pick a record. That's not fair, is it? I'm supposed to pick records. I'll pick Civil War, but D4 is such an important Fat Records band because they don't do hardly anything. I've never had a band where I call them like once every 4 years. You guys want to do a record? We're thinking about it. We'll get back to you in another 2 years, let you know. I think they put out 2 records in 20 years or something. So they're important because they don't give a fuck. And I like that. That's what I like in a Fat Records band. Very low work ethic. We got Against Me, Eternal Cowboy. When I first saw Against Me play at a record store, they gave me that feeling I had first time I saw Operation Ivy. It's like, wow. I mean, they just got everyone so into it. And then I saw them at Gilman Street, and same thing. It's an incredible band back then, and I feel really lucky to have gotten, I don't know, their best or second best record, which I think it is, next to Axl Rose. It was a super exciting time for me to get. They were like the coolest punk band in the country. They were stoked to come to Fat Records. They came on tour with NOFX for 4 days. Laura Jane calls it the longest 4-day tour of her life. Yeah, we did a lot of bad things together. Not a lot of sleep on that tour. It was a good one. Good Riddance, Comprehensive Guide. Good Riddance was one of the bands I signed that I didn't see play. I never met. I just heard their demo and said I wanted to sign them. They thought I was kidding. They didn't think it was really me. And they did Forgotten Country, which is like a cool punk album. But then the next album was Comprehensive Guide, and that just fucking blew everyone away. It's just like full of great songs, and it's their classic album, and it was part of, I think there's 6 or 7 original Fat Records albums that really defined our sound. And all those bands did great. That was one of them. Another one of them was Face to Face, Don't Turn Away, which I feel very fortunate to get that. They were just friends of mine, Face to Face. I met them when NOFX was recording The Longest Line. They stopped by the studio because they wanted to record there. And they were like, oh my God, new NOFX. And we just became friends. And they did their album on Doctor Strange, but they weren't happy. So they just said, Mike, can we put this out? So it didn't, I just put it out, and it fucking sold like 200,000 copies. It's like amazing. And it's just like, that record is an original sounding punk record. Everyone knows it's Face to Face. And that was one of our first records. It was just, it was great for the label. And strangely enough, it took about 25 years, and Face to Face came back to the label, and they're still making great records. But that's the one. Face to Face, don't turn away. I have Lagwagon, Let's Talk About Feelings. Their trash record or Haas was maybe more important, but I like Let's Talk About Feelings. I like every song on that. I think that's when Joey's songwriting got the most mature. It's just such a smooth sounding record where every song is great. Hard to pick with Lagwagon because there's so many great records, but I'm going with Let's Talk About Feelings. They were the band that NOFX first took on tour. It was the first Fat Records band, really. What a pleasure it is to watch them grow over the years, and you know, all the ups and downs. I went through a lot with those guys. I remember they were breaking up. They just kind of had it, and I talked them into staying together. No, it was after Haas, actually. Man, I talked a lot of bands into staying together. No Use for Name were breaking up before Leche Con Carne, which is another. Oh, I don't think I picked that one. No, weird. I picked No Use Feel Good Record of the Year. I always considered Tony Sly to be the best songwriter on Fat Records. It was like 4 or 5 years after that record when Tony died. No new No Use for Name record. I mean, we have all these demos, and it's just so sad that they never got recorded. No Use for Name, Feel Good Record of the Year. Of course, Leche Con Carne was the record that really broke for them because it had Soulmate. And that was a record where I went to Fresh Start, that salad place with Steve and Tony, and they were calling it quits before that record. I'm like, you guys can't break up now. Come on, get through your differences. I'll produce the record. I got a new studio, and you know, can't break up now. And you know, thank God they didn't. That's the record where they had, you know, mainstream radio spins all over the country, and we're touring with the Offspring in front of 10,000 people a day. And well, everyone likes Leche Con Carne, but I prefer Feel Good Record of the Year. I'm talking with Tony's wife, Bridget, about what to do with them, because you can't really put them out as they are. They're not like in studio demos. He didn't care about. They're just songs, like one verse, one chorus. He's not particularly singing them well, and I want to re-record them with the band, and get Yotam from Useless ID to sing. I think that would be really cool. You know, I'd play in the band, maybe just get people who are in No Use for Name to play on it. But it's kind of weird to do that too, though. Another first classic album that a band that people in America don't really care about as much, but it's High Standard. High Standard's first album, they came out to America, and me and Ryan Green produced growing up. They came and toured with NOFX out here. They did one of the smartest things I've ever seen a band do. They played 20-minute sets. And they're like, if people don't like us, they only had to hear us for 20 minutes. And if they liked us, they just want to hear more for next time. It's like, wow, they put their career like in front of the fun it is to play. It's really smart. Anyway, that 3-piece band, High Standard, did that record. We released it in the US, but we also exported it to Japan. We were allowed to. And it turned into being our biggest selling record on the label, which not many people know. And their second record too, but we ended up selling hundreds of thousands of that just as exports to Japan. And these days, they only play once a year, but they play at a baseball stadium where the Japanese Giants play, and they have to put tickets on for a lottery. You need to win tickets to see them play at a stadium. So they play in front of 35,000 people once a year, and they get 250,000 people wanting to get tickets. So they're just like this giant band. They've never come back to the US. They just don't want to. They don't need to. And that's a super important record. And you should check it out because it's a really cool record. Not doing 20-minute sets anymore. They play, but they don't only play for about an hour and a half. I mean, no fucking band should be playing more than an hour and a half ever. Ugh. Strung Out, Twisted by Design was very important for Fat. Their first 2 records are great. Twisted by Design, I think they really got their sound. That was the last record that Jim Cherry wrote on before he died. Just the writing is, well, I just love that record, Twisted by Design. They're like they're the punk metal band on the label. And, you know, I'm not a big fan of metal, but I love those early Strung Out records. Twisted by Design, that's my pick. The Gimme Gimmies. Me first in the Gimme Gimmies. Just a stupid idea. Me and my friends who are in other bands, like NOFX, you know, everyone lives in LA. I lived in San Francisco. And all these bands, Joey Cape and Chris from the Foo Fighters, we all lived in San Francisco. And we just wanted to play stupid songs at bars for our friends. And, you know, we spent a year recording 7-inch records. And we just put them on a record. And it turned out to be the second, next to NOFX. Gimmies are the biggest band on the label, and we don't try hard at all. We didn't tour for years. We would just do shows at bars in San Francisco for years, and the records are still flying out the door. A band is just for fun. Sometimes it just really works. It also works because Spike is an amazing singer. But what record am I going to pick by the Gimmies? I'm picking Love Our Country as the best record. Spike and Joey gave me a list of 100 country songs that they liked, because my tastes are more discerning. And I ended up picking 16 country songs, and we got it down to 12. So I'm a big fan of that record. It's also the only record where a band contacted us to let us know what they thought of the cover. And that was the Eagles. The Eagles manager called up Fat Records and wanted to let us know that that was the worst cover they'd ever heard. So we got that. That was exciting for us. The Eagles, yeah. Propagandhi, How to Clean Everything. It was the 3rd record I put out, I think. I think that record really started the Fat Record sound. That record came out before Punk and Drublic. NOFX had White Trash 2, He Was in a Bean, and Longest Line. And then listen to the difference to the NOFX sound when we did Punk and Drublic. It influenced the hell out of us. I think they influenced all those bands, that you could really play riffs, play weird, you know, chords and complicated riffs and be melodic. So Propaganda had it, and lyrically, it killed everybody. Super smart lyrics. They set the bar that everyone had to live up to. I think that was a fun record. It's weird because most of these records I produced too, which I didn't put on a lot of the records because, you know, it's like I was having fun doing it, and I didn't want everyone to think people to think I produce everything. It's just I didn't put out that many bands at the time, and I wanted to make sure the records were really good. So yeah, flying Propagandhi down. They'd never been to LA. They see Wayne Gretzky at the airport. I take them to the studio, and Guns N' Roses are in the studio, and they were just like, "What the fuck is going on here?" So, and we recorded that entire record in 6 days, I think. Recorded and mixed. So, pretty great. Then there's Snuff, Demo Must Be Bunk. That title's terrible, but it's like, apparently it's a Greek neighbor, Duncan's Greek neighbor, that would say, "There must be bonkers. They must be bonkers." So, there must have been bonk. Snuff were broken up. They were in a band called Guns N' Wankers, which I really liked. I asked them, why didn't they get Snuff back together? Like, no way, man. We're done. That ship sailed. I said, I'll give you $50,000 to make a record. And they said, we'll do it. And they instantly got back together and made that record. And that fucking record is so awesome. Every song is good. I wasn't that happy with the mix, and they sent us the record, and me and Ryan Green mixed it in a day and a half. When you do that, when you mix something really fast, sometimes it just turns out to be magic. That was one of the records that turned out very good like that. That was like the Gimme Gimmies. We told Ryan, okay, you have 20 minutes to mix this song. That's it, 20 minutes. And that's how that first record went. And that's kind of why it sounds so weird and good, because no time to think about it. We just did it. We put out something called Have Another Ball. That was all the B-sides from the 7 inches. We were going to try to do that again, but Gimme is so dysfunctional right now. It's crazy. Nobody wants to go in the studio. The one record that really changed everything, I would say, is Survival of the Fattest. I used to give out 1,000 free comps at every NOFX show. And that was when CDs, were $15.98 and people cared about CDs. And what? I get a free CD too. So everyone took home a free CD. And that's when all those bands got popular. In every city, I gave out 1,000 CDs. So, that's even Diesel Boy could go on tour. Everyone knew one song. So Survival of the Fattest, I don't even know how many it sold because we didn't pay royalties on it because, we were selling them for $2. I don't know, probably 500,000 copies. And it was so cheap for us because it was all promotion that we just kept sending them and kept sending them out. Another comp we put out is Short Music for Short People. That was 101 bands, and everyone's song had to be under 30 seconds. It's for the new generation, for the new ADD generation. Most bands did a pretty good job of it. And, I just called in favors by, Green Day and Blink and all these, and Offspring, all these huge bands. Bad Religion, Bad Religion, they're not into that kind of thing. Doing comps, giving original songs to comps. But you make a lot of friends over the years, and I called up 101 bands and asked them to do 30-second songs. And it came together. It's a really fun record. When you listen to Circle Jerks Group Sex, that record's only 16 minutes long. It's a fucking 16-minute long record, and it's fucking classic. Punk rock songs have always been short. If you can make a good song in 30 seconds, then you got talent. It's not easy to do. Actually, you know what? I take that back. It is easy to do. I called up a bunch of bands and gave them a very easy task of recording 30-second songs. But that's a record that everyone should hear at least once. It's a lot of fun. While we're on comps, these two records, I'm going to kind of say they're one because they came out at the same time, was Rock Against Bush 1 and Rock Against Bush 2. Those raised over $1 million, which we put into the John Kerry campaign, against George Bush. We're successful in that, but we did get a few 100,000 people to register to vote. And that was when I called up even bigger bands and asked them for songs, because now I had a cause. It wasn't just for a stupid comp. And, No Doubt came on board. Foo Fighters gave us an original song. Green Day gave us a really good original song, Favorite Son at the time. And everyone gave me good songs. And it really united everyone at Fat Records. We all had a common goal. And everyone spent more time marketing that and pushing for that. It was, we all felt it was like our civil duty to try to do everything we could to get George Bush out of office. So it was an important time, and I got to hand one to John Kerry, which is really cool. He's like, "I'll listen to it on the plane." I was like, "Yeah." The last comp I'm gonna put on this list is the Tony Sly comp. Once again, I had to call a lot of bands. I asked everyone to do a different version of songs that Tony Sly wrote. I wanted to show the world what a great songwriter Tony was. And if you can do a song in many different styles of music and it's still good, that kind of proves that it's a good song. And I think people heard that and are like, wow, these are great songs. Instead of just punk rock songs, it really transcends. So the Tony Sly comp, that was something. We had a listening party at Bottom of the Hill, not Bottom of the Hill, at the Parkside in San Francisco. All the Fat bands and Tony's family were there, and everyone it got dead quiet when we listened to the whole record, and it's just everyone was crying, and it was such a nice celebration of his life and his art. Still, I can't get over his death. It's still the worst death of my life, and I miss him all the time. I'm really glad I got to put that comp out, though, for his memory. Anti-Flag did The Terror State. That's an important record. That's all I'm going to say about that one. Good songs. Swingin' Utters, 5 Lessons Learned. That was one of our original bands. Still very close friends with them. And when they did 5 Lessons Learned, that it's clearly their great album. It sounds amazing. Great songs. That was when they reached their height of popularity. So Fat was putting out a lot of good records in, and that was their best one. I guess I have to talk about NOFX. I'm going with The War on Errorism. When NOFX put out The War on Errorism, it was once again, it was during the George Bush presidency, and putting his face on the cover as a clown and, American heirist. It felt good. It felt good. And it was also the first time a Fat record hit #1 in the independent charts. So I was watching CNN and it said #1 record in the US, independent record, NOFX, The War on Errorism. I was like, hey, CNN, whoa. It mattered so much more because it was a political album, even though most of our records are political. That was the political album. It was right when we left Epitaph, so it was special for me. Fat Records riffs, message, and fun, and melodies too. That's the Fat Record sound. When I'm doing a NoFX record, I usually have, I don't know, 15 or 20 songs that I've written. And it takes me a while to figure out what this record is going to sound like. I have to think about it like a record, since, I'm writing all the songs. Like, I remember when I did So Long, Thanks for All the Shoes, it was after Heavy Petting Zoo. And I'm like, no, I'm going to write songs in 20 minutes. I'm just going to write this song. I just wrote songs really fast, and it turned into being, maybe our best record, So Long, Thanks for All the Shoes. Not overthought, not overthinking. Heavy Petting Zoo was way overthought. This new NoFX record, so overthought, it's crazy. Man, I've been working on this new NoFX record for like 2 years. Because right in the middle, we decided to do this Frank Turner split. It used to take me about 45 minutes to turn a Republican against George Bush. I did it quite often on planes, and I would have a nice, calm discussion with people and give them facts about George Bush, why he's such a bad person, and all the terrible things he did to this country. When you talk to a Trump supporter, there's no winning any argument, because it's just people, they backed him, so they feel they have to keep backing him. They don't argue with logic. If you're a Trump fan, you're a fucking idiot. You're a bad person. You must be a liar or you like someone who lies to you. So you live in some kind of weird world where you enjoy lies. The interview he just did yesterday is incredible. The things he's saying, he's out of his mind. He probably lies, 100 times a day. I have never told a lie. I mean, seriously, I don't lie, which is weird. So it really bugs me. What can I say I can't say anything about Trump that people don't already know. It's a waste of fucking my air. I can't say, vote against Trump, he's a bad president. What can I say that we don't already know? How about those Mad Caddies? There's a band that is underlooked sometimes, but not in Europe. Mad Caddies killed in Europe. When they did Duck and Cover, that record is so important because still no one sounds like that band. No one put punk rock and Dixieland jazz together as well. And with a little ska, and just kind of, it's weird because they never really got accepted in the ska scene or the punk scene. There is no Dixieland jazz scene, as far as I know of. What a great listen. And playing live, they always just blew everyone away. We took them on tour. NOFX took Mad Caddies on tour so many times. They're so good live and so much fun. So here's one of the records. Mad Caddies, Duck and Cover. Cokey the Clown, You're Welcome. That record, man, was it not liked and loved. And even people who like the record, they can't listen to it. I didn't expect that people would not be able to listen to it because of the subject matter. I just, it's important for me because it took me off and on for a year of really depressing studio sessions with Danny Lohner from Nine Inch Nails. I was at his crazy dilapidated house in the Hollywood Hills, and I would just stay there and drink vodka, do drugs, and sit in the corner and sing those songs. it was such a painful album to record. It was not cathartic or therapeutic. It was just singing these memories. And Danny'd be like, sing that again. You got to sing it again, sing it again. And my voice is all fucked up from coke and drinking incessantly. It was just a weird recording experience. And I think it's the most depressing album like ever. It was me with my skin off. It was like me singing with no skin on my body, because I opened up about all the tragedies of my life. So weird record. It's I don't listen to it. I hear more and more people say what a brilliant, great album it is, but they can't listen to it. It's just too sad. And when I went on tour playing it, performing it, I only did 3 shows, but I couldn't do it again. I don't know if I'll ever make another Cokey record. It took a lot out of me, and a lot of people just didn't really dig it. Which it's not why I did it. I did it. Just I like to do things that no one's done before. So I made a record that no one was expecting, and I don't think it sounds like anything else. It's my life. It's like a painting of my life. Another important record, I'm going to say Frenzal Rhom's greatest hits. Frenzal Rhom, worst name in punk rock. They're the most underrated band on Fat Records for sure. Australia, all their records go gold. Huge in Australia, that's where they're from. Jason and Lindsay, they were guest hosts on like the Howard Stern morning show. The guy went on vacation, so they took over for a week, and they had better ratings, so they got hired. So the 2 people in the band were the 2 most popular radio talk show hosts in the country for years, and they still played in Frenzal Rhom, this funny little punk band. That's Jason did it for 5 years and retired. He's retired from how much money he made doing radio. He just didn't want to wake up at 5 a.m. anymore. And Lindsay just retired, but that's a band. If you're looking for good music, Frenzal Rhom, great band. The new Get Dead album. It's not out yet, so I don't know if I can do this, but the new Get Dead record is original. Those guys are fucking punk rockers. They're the band that dosed me. They fucking punched me. Sam comes to my house, just shows up during COVID, and graffitis on my house. Those guys, no rules with them. You never know what you're gonna get. They fight each other all the time. I just went camping with fucking Sam, which is so I decided to go camping with Sam. The new Get Dead album, it's really different. It's like dark ska, hip hop, punk. It's one of those times where a band puts out a totally original sounding record. They got their sound. This is the album. It's an album that you should definitely check out, because it's going to be an important album. The Real McKenzies. I'm going to say the Real McKenzies, Oot and a Boot, one of the most important Fat Records. That was a band that I produced almost all their records. Saw them in a bar in San Francisco. I went back to see them again. This was, in the 90s. The band's been around forever. And they finally came down to San Francisco and let me produce. And what a solid band. What a great record. And they have a bunch of records that are great in a row. They never took off in the U.S. I guess because, there's Flogging Molly and Dropkick Murphys. Real McKenzies were around before both those bands. They've been around forever, and they're just old punk rockers. And kind of like Get Dead, when I was in the studio with them, it was the craziest studio time I've ever seen. I mean, they're some of the guys are shooting speed. A nurse came over and shot him up with ketamine. I'd bring over some coke, and and like Dave Gregg from DOA, he's like, "You got anything harder?" I'm like, "Really? Cocaine's not hard enough for you." And this band they'd each have their bottles of whiskey or vodka, and they'd keep them like hidden in their backpacks, in their back, because they didn't want to share. And you never, I'd be working there, and then, Bone would get up. He'd wake up at 1 a.m, ready to go. I'm ready. Let's go. Just like total chaos. Real McKenzies, and they're a punk band. True punk band. I haven't seen them in a long time. I don't produce them anymore because I stay away from drugs these days. They're not a band that you want to hang out with and do drugs. But I've never seen a more punk band in my life. Sick of It All, Call to Arms was an important record on Fat Records. That was, the first real hardcore band we signed. I'd just been friends with them forever. I'd known Craig since '86, since he was in Youth of Today. So they were just really good friends of mine. No one has anything bad to say about Sick of It All. They're just rad dudes, rad live band. And I was kind of like, can I sign a hardcore band? I don't sign hardcore bands. This is a melodic label. So we signed them. Really good to have them on the Fat Family. They left for a little while. They're back now. It was funny. I didn't produce that record. They recorded it on the East Coast. And when it came out, people gave them shit for being melodic. People were like, oh, you're on Fat Records. And yeah, I can hear that. Yeah, they already recorded the album. I had nothing to do with it. But Sick of It All. Good dudes. Tilt. That was one of our early bands. It's very important. Tilt Till It Kills. Cinder and Jeffrey. Right now, Jeffrey from Tilt lives in my house. That's how long I've known this guy. I'd been friends with him. But Cinder was a force to be reckoned with. Cinder was, I think, the only woman singer of that whole '90s generation punk rock. There was a couple others, but as far as Fat Records go, she was the only woman. I don't think there's a female-fronted band on Epitaph, like a punk band, not till Distillers. She was the one girl. She said at every show they play, she was the only girl on stage. Her lyrics are great band. Still try to get them to do a new record. Probably won't happen. All right, an important record is The Descendents, Cool to Be You. One of the first bands I ever saw, huge fan. And when their contract was up at Epitaph, I just said, hey, you want to do a record on Fat? And they did. Because they only put out records, once every 8 years or something. So I was stoked. And I'm going to put this out there. I think it's one of their best records, if not their best record. Molly Goes to College is clearly their best record. But after that, I think this is number 2. I dare people to go out there and listen to Cool to Be You against any one of their other records. I think it beats it. People didn't pay that much attention to it, but it's a fucking good record. Les and Jake are an important Fat Records band, Borders and Boundaries. They still kept the rejection letter that I sent them from years earlier. I think they sent 2 records to me. I didn't want to put them out. They got off their major label and called me, and I was super happy to put it out. And that's one of those bands I love touring with. Amazing dudes. That was a great addition to the Fat Family. I do feel like it's a Fat Family because I know all the bands so well. Because once I sign a band, I usually take them on tour, and I don't sign dickhead bands. I try not to. I had a couple, had to drop them. Had to drop bands just because they were assholes. But that's how it is. You can't be a total fucking dick rock star and be on my label. Here's a band got kind of popular, Rise Against. They did 2 records with us. Their first record, I'm going to say, is the one. It wasn't the biggest, but I still think it's their best record. I remember they sent me a demo, and people at Fat were kind of like, this is okay. I'm like, no, this is good. This guy's got a cool voice, and it's Joe from 88 Fingers Louie. It turned out to be really big for us, and now Rise Against it. They're one of the best punk bands in the world right now. I think the last record of the 30, and no one's going to agree with this one, is Closet Fiends. Closet Fiends is a 5-song EP that we put out by a trans kid named Sam Sadowski. Sturgeon from Leftover Crack and his girlfriend Shannon would just tell me a story about some crazy street kid who got beat up and was coming out of the hospital. And Sturgeon said, look at this video of him on YouTube. And it's this video of him at 15 years old, and he's playing guitar. And I was like, this is an amazing song. What the fuck? Yeah, he's a great songwriter, but he's he lives on the street. He's a prostitute. He's a hustler. She's a hustler. She's a junkie, and she's mentally ill. And she was 19 years old at the time. So they told me this in the afternoon. Me and Sturgeon got on our bikes. We rode all around San Francisco and found her at like 4 PM. And I'm like, hey Sam, it's Fat Mike. Hi, and I have a label and I want to record you. And Sam was like, cool. When? I go, well, why don't we just do it now? So found this kid on the street, went to Guitar Center, bought her a guitar, a new guitar, and a banjo, because she played banjo too. And then we were on our way to Motor Studios. We went to the studio and recorded a song that night. So I found this street kid, hooked her up with everything she needed, went to the studio and started recording, which was, what a crazy time. And we ended up spending 10 days in the studio to record 5 songs, because getting takes was impossible. And me and my wife at the time, Soma, she didn't have enough money to buy clothes. She just had rags on, and we bought her some really pretty dresses and got her cleaned up and brought her to Fat Records. And she was so proud of herself that she's finally on a label. And it was just out of nowhere. And everyone at Fat was like, are you sure about this? But what a sweet woman. And I got her some shows, and I forgot about the mentally ill part. She only made one show, and she only made it there with 5 minutes to spare, opening for the Subhumans. And all the other shows, she didn't show up to. She died last year on the street. I have one of her guitars in my backyard planted. But her parents thanked me and Aaron for everything we did for her, tried to help out. But those 2 weeks spending in the studio with her was really special for me. Just and when you listen to that EP, the emotion on it is just incredible. The ambulance song was the song that we recorded that night, and there's video of it, and just seeing, you really get to see into inside this person and how she lived. And street junkie hustler, and no shame. Just, yeah, I'm going back out, do a trick. Just, that was her life. And we documented it on this album. Well, Fat Records, I always said, is a label of bands I like. I never really signed bands for the money. There's been tons of bands I turned down that were so surprised I turned it down. Like New Found Glory. I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't want to put out your music. You guys are bros, but you're not a Fat Records band. You got to have something that I like. Fat Records is bands that I like, that I chose to be on my label as friends and family, and as musicians and artists. We're not a label that centers around business at all. It's just about the music and the people. Don't forget to put this in. When I do interviews, I gotta be like, and it's like drinking a beer, but healthy.